supporting your local news, Airpark Canterbury, Logistics Drive and Parking Island off Russley Road.
Christchurch community groups working in the red zone have come together in force to demand a community voice on a new governance committee. They are calling on the council to reconsider last week's decision not to include a grassroots community representation on an interim committee that will manage 602 hectares of the corridor until a charitable trust can be established. Well, to join me on this issue is community advocate Hayley Guglietta. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you.
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So let's get this right. The council has approved 3 elected councillors, the mayor, a deputy and a councillor for this committee, along with 3 iwi members. So what's the problem?
So since the red zoning announcement in 2011, the community has advocated for community to have a strong voice in this. So to turn their backs on this now and shut community out is just simply heartbreaking.
How do you mean that they've shut the community out? Because couldn't you also argue that councillors are part of a community, and in fact some of them have been probably in grassroots movements before?
Well, through all the work and research we've done over the years, there's a clear definition between what an elected member is and what community representation is. It's clearly outlined in the Global Settlement. Chris Finlayson outlined it in his paper commissioned by the council, and Chrissy Williams in the University of Canterbury wrote a booklet on it. So councillors tend to work councillors have to work for the whole city, and they just simply don't have the historical context and the stakeholder connections in this space.
Now, it's interesting you say that, because historical context, couldn't you easily argue that some members of iwi probably do have that historical context and knowledge, and therefore they rightly are at the table?
Absolutely, and quite rightly they're at the table. But this is the community historical context from the post-earthquake red zoning of the people. There was 5,000 households that were red zoned, and our community groups have been working closely with those people and with the surrounding communities. So that's the context we mean. Yeah.
Sure. So why then, Hayley, would councillors vote to limit community representation then?
Apart from the confusing staff report. So, but in my opinion, this was a political block voting situation, and the 2 councillors who could have been appointed to the co-governance group were at risk of losing their seat to community representation. I think it's as simple as that, in my view.
Who are those councillors?
Jake McClellan and Kelly Barber.
Okay,
the third area would have been Celeste Donovan, who actually presented the amendment.
Okay.
So she understands the importance of the community voice in this space.
When I was watching that meeting, I was almost confused, I think, as many councillors were, and I noticed that Sarah Templeton was asking some pertinent questions saying, what is going on here? It was my view that the staff member didn't really know what he was doing either, and perhaps that's why things were muddled. What was your impression of that staff meeting when the staff member sat there and said, well, actually, this is kind of a done deal? Then the CEO intervened and said, no, it's not. It was very confusing.
It was confusing, and I think that is part of the issue as to the not supporting the amendment, because it was unclear to the councillors from that staff report what iwi were wanting, and quite rightly the councillors were respecting Ngāi Tuhuri's desire to have mana to mana, but they were pretty clear that they weren't too concerned about the 3rd seat. So had that been made clear, I think it would have been a different outcome.
Hayley, isn't the elephant in the room here more about than just governance? Aren't we really talking about co-governance here in action? And therefore, you've got Māori at the table, unelected, for better or worse, and they're making these decisions. The council is simply voicing, or the council staff are simply voicing their wishes, and now we're at a stalemate now where people like yourself, grassroots movements that have been around for a long time, don't get a say because of forces higher above.
Well, indeed. I think I'd rather use the term collaborative partnership rather than co-governance, because At the end of the day, by having representation from iwi, elected members and community, all of the stakeholders are working together for the best outcomes for the city and for this particular project. So I think people are too focused on. I think people are too focused on what co-governance is. In actual fact, in this context, it is a collaborative partnership to execute this project and ensure that there's a really good, enduring body going forward to encapsulate the desires of both mana whenua, the legal obligations of the council in terms of the ownership of the land, and the desires of the community stakeholders, which I've already outlined, are vast. They are the people who have left their land, the communities surrounding it, and all of the project stakeholders that have come in since to activate, do regeneration projects. There's an array, and there'll be more to come. So this is an intergenerational project as well. So the stakeholders will also probably double in size as more and more come on board with the execution of this project. So, yeah.
Hayley, so in your view, what should have happened instead?
I guess last week's paper should have been a moment of pride and celebration for our city. We should have cheered what should have been a unique and special partnership between iwi, the elected members, and the community. Instead, it just turned into a political football, ignoring the mahi of the people who worked so hard for so long to make this happen. Yeah.
Hayley, for you personally, why has this been so important for you? I know you've worked in the red zone areas in different parts of Richmond for years, and you're very much known as a community advocate for the community. Why is this, I mean, is it fair to say you're quite hurt by this decision?
This is indeed deeply personal to me. It's been over 10 years of my life advocating for our communities, and a lot longer for others. And when Evan Smith passed away, I made a promise to him that I would make sure that we got the enduring entity in place and ensure that the land could be kept in one lot and not be redeveloped. Simply to bring peace to all those people that had to leave their homes. So yeah, it is deeply, deeply important to me to see this through.
So you and other community-minded people have written a letter to council essentially asking for what?
That we would like community representation. Simple as that. Whether that's the third seat at the table in lieu of an elected member, or that they add a completely independent community representative that they can choose to ensure, and it's really, really important at this point, if any point of this process, it's so important to have that voice at the table to make sure that the enduring trust has those stakeholders in the historical context embedded in it. So
I wish you well.
Yeah.
It sounds like you might have to stand for council if you want to get something done.
Sounds that way. Well, I could maybe, and then be an elected appointment.
See, even your dog saying yes, go for it, you see. Hayley Guglietta, it's good to speak with you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Chris.